Good morning. Good morning po.
Morning.
Morning po.
Okay po, attendance tayo. So sa boys, si Kyle wala, and then sa girls, si Kale naman po. Okay, so sakto lang. Dalawa silang nawawala. Okay po, so before we start our performance task, let us have the tech trivia presentations. Alright, let's start po. Actually, before we start our performance task po, I want to ask you this question. What did you learn from the whole term that we discussed? TinkerCAD, Arduino, circuits, anyone? Like, do you have any realizations? What have you learned po? Anyone? Wala po natutunan? Anyone po, what have you learned from the whole term that we discussed? TinkerCAD. From the first lesson, TinkerCAD, and then up to the last lesson last week, yung Arduino circuits po. Yes, Carrie.
Miss, I've learned how to make a basic circuit, and I also learned that we humans will have a harder time if these electronic components did not exist.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. How about the others po? What have you learned? Magtatawag na lang ako? Tatawag na lang ako, no? Parang mas masaya yon. Okay po, let's have Kesha. What have you learned po?
Miss, I thought that circuits will only work when the wires are directly connected, but through the breadboard, it can work even without directly connected.
Okay po, thank you. So actually, for the most part, we discussed two main topics, which is the 9-volt circuit and then the Arduino circuit. We discussed the 9-volt circuits po yung first half natin from the start of the term until the midterm. And then after midterm, we started discussing the Arduino circuits. Now, can you tell me what's the difference between these two? Like for 9-volt circuits po, what did we focus on? And then for the Arduino circuits, anong diniscuss natin? Anong mas diniscuss natin for Arduino circuit? What's the difference? Yes, Anya.
Miss, for the 9-volt circuits, it's more basic and just connections. And for Arduino circuits, it focuses more on coding.
Okay po, thank you. Very good. Actually, for the 9-volt circuits, di ba po, we discussed about how to use the TinkerCAD, how to use the components, the breadboard, what are the functions of the components like LED RGB, resistor, slide switch, and push button, and how you connect them to each other to create a circuit. Di ba po? Pero for the Arduino circuits naman, since you already know the basics on how you connect the components to each other, we more focused on the programming, the very basic coding lang naman, no blocks programming po. And of course, for this, we use the same set of components like the LED RGB, resistor, slide switch, push button, breadboard, but we added one, yung programmable device natin or component natin, which is the Arduino Uno R3. Alright, so for today po, as I announced last week, nag-meet tayo no Friday, so we will have your individual performance task. And for the objectives po, number 1, utilize the functions of Arduino board, basic electronic components, and basic programming. Number 2, analyze the given Arduino circuit instructions. And lastly, create circuits with blocks programming. Alright, so this is your performance task calendar. So we will have 3 parts. We will have part 1 and part 2 today, both for individual. Today po, part 1. Part 1 po is worth 30 points. Part 2 is worth 20 points. And then for next week, last meeting na natin yon, we will have our team performance task po, which is worth 30 points naman. Alright? So just to give you an idea of where I got the concept of your performance task, number 1, I'll show you this one. Ayan, the doctor is in, the doctor is outside. Are you familiar with this? Familiar now, siguro when you go to your doctor, some of you, when you go to your doctors, they have this signage in front of their doors or beside their doors, no? The doctor is in, the doctor is out. So for this, actually, yung signage na yan, some of them are using LED. May ilaw yung signage nila, no? Hindi lang yung simpleng sign lang na the doctor is in, the doctor is out. And since some of them are using LED, they also use slide switch. Now, I'll tell you how the slide switch works for this. Alright, let's say the colored letters, yung orange, the colored letters po means nakailaw siya. The light is turned on. And then yung naka-black naman po, it means the LED is turned off. Can you follow po? Alright, so for this, it says the doctor is in. Alright, if your doctor wants to say the doctor is in, meaning he or she is currently available, nasa office lang siya, no? Your doctor will turn on the slide switch. Okay, if your doctor wants to light up the word in, ito turn on niya yung slide switch. Can you follow po? But if your doctor wants to say the doctor is out, so kailangan si out yung nakailaw, no, the word out po will be turned on by turning off naman the slide switch. Okay, remember for the slide switch, we have two positions. The left, which means off, and then the right means on. Tama ba? So kapag nasa left, yung slide switch natin, the word out will light up. And then kapag naman nasa right yung slide switch, the word in will light up. Can you follow po? So for this, actually, the slide switch doesn't work as like the switch na nagte-turn off, nagte-turn on ng ilaw. No, for this kasi, the slide switch acts as a controller for the doctor to choose which word will light up. So again, if your doctor wants to say, the doctor is in, di ba po? So iti-turn on niya yung slide switch. If your doctor wants to say, the doctor is out, iti-turn off niya naman yung slide switch. Can you follow po? Nasundan yon? Okay. So again, this is not your performance task ha, pero this is where I got the idea of your performance task number 1. And to start po, your individual performance task, this is how I divided our time, our 2 hours for today. So part 1, we will have individual performance task number 1 for 30 minutes. Instructions, I'll show you later. You can access that on Eliza. And then after that, we will have a screen break. And then for the part 2, you have 25 minutes. Alright, and nakasulat dyan, do not submit yet when finished. And then for this one, submit when finished with part 1. So for these 2 performance tasks, listen carefully, you will only submit 1 TinkerCAD link. Okay, so once you finish performance task number 1, raise hand lang. Wala pa kayong isasubmit kasi po, in the same TinkerCAD file, you will continue your part 2. Malinaw ba tayo doon? Okay, so after part 2, that is when you can submit your performance task, individual performance task 1 and 2. Alright, so remember, this is our schedule. So you have to finish it today before mag-end yung robotics period natin. Since this is not a homework, di ba? Wala na tayong i-discuss, puro performance task na lang tayo. So you have the whole time to finish your performance task po. Question? Yes po, 2 circuit sa isang TinkerCAD file. Magkasama sila doon. Alright? So your performance task number 1, listen carefully. The title is light pattern. For the component list po, you don't have to write this. I'll give you the file later. Component list, you have to use 4 LEDs, colors red, yellow, green, and blue. 4 resistors, Arduino Uno R3, small breadboard, and the slide switch. And then for the scoring, remember, this is a total of 30 points. So 15 points if your circuit is working correctly, 5 points for your coding, like the variable if you use the correct code blocks, and then other 5 points instructions and components if you follow the instructions correctly, and if you use the components, all listed components right here. And then last 5 points for organization of components and wires. Alright, so for this, alam nyo na yan. You have to change the colors of the wires always. Red for positive, black for negative. And then again, total of 30 points. Okay po. Now, open your Eliza. Once you open your Eliza, meron diyang performance task tile, and then click performance task number 1, individual task. Okay po, na-open na? Okay, once you click performance task number 1, individual task from Eliza, it will redirect you to this file. Alright, ayan may mga naka-access na. So again, I'll just discuss this. Component list, andyan po yung sinabi ko kanina. And then for the instructions, you have to read and analyze the instructions. Read it carefully. And then rubric for scoring, again, 30 points. And then for the submission, ayan, take note, do not submit your circuit yet. Kasi later, after screen break, in the same TinkerCAD file po, you will do your performance task number 2. Alright, so actually, you don't have to, okay, tip lang, you don't have to write a very complex coding for this. Think of the simplest way for you to solve the instructions, the given problem po. Alright, kung ano yung pinakasimple, yun yung tama. Okay, huwag mag-overthink para hindi matatagalan ha. So you just have to analyze the instructions po, basahin mabuti. Any question? Any question po? Okay, since wala ng question, you can now open your TinkerCAD po. And then again, you have 30 minutes to finish this and 30 minutes starts now. Everyone, turn on your camera. Okay po, let's start. Turn on your camera, everyone. Your performance task number 2, title, switch on. So for the components po, you have to use one LED, so any color, it's up to you. 2 LED RGBs, 3 resistors, 1 9 volts battery, 1 small breadboard, and 3 push buttons. So for this, you don't have to code kasi you're going to use a 9 volts battery. And then rubric for scoring po, 10 points, of course, if your circuit is working correctly. 5 points instructions and components, 5 points organization of components and wires. So again, for the wires, make sure positive is red, black for negative po. So that's a total of 20 points. Now, reload your ELIZA po. Open performance task number 2, individual task. Na-open na po? Okay. So once you click performance task number 2, individual task, it will redirect you to this document. Alright, so the list of the components that you have to use. And then for the instructions, take note of number 1 and number 7 instructions. Sabi sa number 1, in the same TinkerCAD circuit po na ginamit nyo for performance task number 1, place the 9 volts battery and small breadboard beside your performance task number 1 circuit. Alright, so magiging ganito yung itsura niya. Kahit hindi ganito yung position, basta po magkatabi sila. Okay? And then for instructions number 7, both circuits, Arduino circuit and your 9 volt circuit po must work when starting the simulation. So they are not connected to each other, so wala silang paka sa isa't isa. No, basta gumagana si 9 volt circuit, gumagana si Arduino circuit, okay po yan. And then, rubric for scoring again, total of 20 points. And then for the submission, this is the file name format. Class number, section, underscore your surname, underscore PT for performance task. And then overall total points is 50 points. So, yung performance task number 1 is 30, this one is 20 points. So, total of 50 points po. And then once you're done, you can already submit your circuit po, your TinkerCAD link to this link. Any question? Wala nang question? Sigurado? Okay, if hindi naintindihan yung instructions, again, be honest, you can always use the chat. So you have 25 minutes to finish this. If hindi nyo natapos yung performance task number 1, you can use the rest of your time if maaga mong natapos yung performance task number 2. Alright? So once you're done, you can already submit your performance task, your TinkerCAD link. So your 25 minutes starts now. Okay, so we're done with your individual performance task po. So actually, another electronic device that uses the concept that you did in your performance task number 2 is your TV remote. Diba? Especially the volume up and down button. Since your performance task number 2 uses the push buttons po, diba? Also, your TV remote uses push buttons, especially the volume up. So, volume up, volume down. So if you hold and press the volume up button, the volume will continuously increase. Tama ba? And then when you let go of the push button, push button, okay, it will stop increasing. Tapos yung kung saan siya nag-stop na number, yun yung current volume niya. Same with the volume down. If you press and hold the volume down button, di ba po, the volume will continuously decrease. Tapos kapag binitawan mo, saka lang siya magsa-stop. Alright? So, it works the same with the push button po. Now, let's have a recap for the closing po. What are the components that you used in your performance task number 1 and number 2? What are the components that you used po? Yes, IZ.
Miss resistor.
Okay po, resistor. What else? Yes, Carrie.
Miss small breadboards po.
Okay po, very good. Small breadboard. What else, CJ?
Slide switch and push button.
Okay po, very good. So, slide switch for performance task number 1, push button for number 2. What else? Yes, Teo.
LED and LED RGB.
LED and LED RGB. And last po, meron pang hindi nababanggit. Yes, Nicole.
Arduino Uno R3.
Okay, Arduino Uno R3. And for performance task number 2, we use 9 volts battery. Now, among those two performance tasks po, which took you longer to finish? And why? Yes, Nicole.
Miss yung sa ano po, 9 volts. Kasi miss, medyo nakalimutan ko na po kung paano.
Yung connection. Okay, how about the others po? Which task took you longer to finish? Yes, Aaron.
Miss yung ano po, yung 1. Kasi po miss may coding pa.
Okay. So, yung number 1, kasi may coding pa. O nga naman. Kasi po for the Arduino Uno RC, the Arduino circuit, you first need to analyze the instructions. Read and analyze the instructions and then iisipin mo, paano mo siya i-code, di ba? You have to plan the coding before ka pa makapag-start ng code. Pero for the 9 volts battery, basta you know how to connect the components to each other to the breadboard, then mag-work na siya. Alright? Unlike sa Arduino Uno RC natin, kapag nakakonect ka na ng mga components sa breadboard sa Arduino Uno R3, it will not work without the coding. So, you just have to code. Alright? So, balik tayo sa objectives. Number 1, utilize the functions of Arduino board. Basic electronic components and basic programming. Number 2, analyze the given Arduino circuit instructions. And number 3, create circuits with blocks programming. So, do you think we met all of these objectives for today? The performance task? Okay. Submit natin. This is your asynchronous activity. So, you have to answer short test number 4 under Module 5 title. Since Module 5 is our last lesson, so dyan ko siya nilagay. And then, of course, this is a short test, so you have to record a video. So, deadline po is tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Any question? Any question? Hindi nyo tatanong kung tungkol saan to? Hindi nyo
Miss
tatanong?
tungkol saan?
Tungkol saan? Okay, for the shortest number 4 po, tungkol lang siya dun sa connections ng mga components natin for 9 volt circuits and also for Arduino circuits. Alright, so drag and drop po siya. Connections po, connections. Alright? So lastly, ayan, before natin i-end yung meeting, so next week again, we will have your team performance task. That is worth 30 points. Alright, pero take note, if you're absent or if you joined the Zoom meeting late and I already grouped your classmates po, and they are already in the breakout rooms, you will do the activity alone. Malinaw tayo doon? Kapag na-late ka lang kahit 1 minute lang yun, tapos nakagroup na sila, mag-isa ka na lang po. So, hindi na siya team performance task kasi mag-isa ka na lang. Pero, kung may kasama kang na-late, edi dalawa kayo, partner na kayo. So, partner na yan, performance task. Okay? Any question po? Any question? Wala nang question? Okay. So, let's have the closing prayer.
Are you ready to pray, classmates?
Yes, we are.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
So it was in the beginning, now, and never shall be, world without end.
Mother Sita,
Pray for us.
God has done great things for us.
May God be forever praised. Hallelujah.
All right, bye. I'll see you next week.
Bye and thank
Bye,
you,
thank you,
Miss.
May.